Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this open session on Visual Basic. I have done a couple of VBA open sessions before as well, and this is again a very often requested training. A lot of people, B school students, engineering students, and people in the corporate want to learn it. And of course, I will do a lot of hands-on examples today, but I also want to talk about why learn it, right? Because it should not happen that you all go back not having clarity in terms of how VBA can play a role in your corporate career, right? So I'm going to give you an honest picture. While VBA is one of my core areas on which I've been working for, 7-8 years now, I do realize that there's a lot of work that is now moving away from Visual Basic. It is still there. Obviously, it is not dead. But there are a lot of other options in terms of other tools and other languages that people are using. Even in Excel, VBA is not the only programming language that we have. There are other options, which I want to discuss. So I want to paint a very honest picture in front of you, especially if you are going to start your corporate career or are looking for a change, what value VBA can bring to you, right? Directly and indirectly. All right. So first things first, these are the expectations that came. This was one of the survey questions, right? So I just want to take you through it so that you can also get a sense of what other people are looking at, right? So learning automation, again, is a very important thing, right? Then let's look at financial modeling. While VBA can be used in all functions, finance, yes, is the function which uses VBA the most, right? Okay, time-consuming task, which again refers to automation. Then we are looking at how to self-learn Python. Yes, I'm going to talk about how to start your coding journey and continue learning other languages, Python being a really important one. Analytical logical reasoning is important, again, if you want to learn programming. And running macros, automation, logical thinking, VBA for beginners is still relevant. I, of course, want to speak about that. VBA for final placements, marketing operations doesn't use VBA quite a lot, but it's always an added skill that's good to have. Yeah. Okay. So just before we start, I want to take just a minute telling you who I am and what I do. Some of you already know me from LinkedIn. You have come for my previous sessions. So my name is Havish Madhupati. I run a firm called Havisham Consulting. It's an analytics firm, and I work as an independent consultant. The work I do is a combination of corporate training, corporate consulting, and B school trainings. The tools that I work on are Excel, Power BI primarily, but I also do a lot of work on Tableau and a little bit of work on data science. But predominantly, it is Excel and Power BI, about 80% of it. In terms of qualifications, I'm Harvard Online certified in data science, 40 under 40 analytics. Havisham Consulting is a Microsoft partner. I am also a Microsoft certified trainer and Office Master, Power BI certified. In addition to that, Havisham Consulting was listed as the 30 most innovative startups to watch out for in 2019. And I was awarded the Indian Achievers Award last year. Okay. You can go and have a look at it later. I have very recently updated my website as well. So you can find a lot of recommendations that have come from, top B schools around the country and different business leaders. Then you can see the sort of clients with whom I work. Specifically talking about VBA, the work I do for VBA is a lot with Sterlite Power, with Adani, Transmission and Adani Power. I do a lot of VBA work with, I used to do a lot of VBA work with PwC and EY. And at the moment, I'm working with D. Shaw quite a lot. In addition to this, on the website, you will also find links to YouTube, my podcast called Conversations on Data. Then there are courses available in case you're interested in them. And then something I have been updating recently is the customer success stories. These are basically case studies. So these are real projects on which I worked with different clients. And what you can find here is basically a little bit of explanation of what the project was about. The purpose of doing this is for me to market myself. And especially for students, it will really help you understand how to create a portfolio. Once you've done a project, which could be a live project or an internship, how do you showcase that to others, right? That is what you will understand by looking at these. I have a YouTube channel by my own name. I'll just share the link with everyone. And you will find 850 videos here that cover Excel, PowerPoint, and Power BI in a lot of detail, and a little bit of courses on Word and Tableau as well. There's a lot of content ranging from very simple topics to really advanced topics. So I like to believe that there's something for everyone. Okay, so with that out of the way, let's start with the session. So first things first, I also want to write down these things so that we don't miss out on anything, right? Let me open my PowerPoint. Okay, first things first, VBA is Visual Basic for Application. It is a slightly modified version of the programming language called Visual Basic. It is very old. It's almost 30 years old now. It started in 1993. And this is not a standalone language, right? So this only works within a host, the host being Outlook, Word, PowerPoint, Excel, even though 99% of the VBA that you would see happens on Excel, right? VBA does not work online. And that's a very big talking point because a lot of now work is shifting to Excel online, right? And if you want to work on Excel online, then we need something called Typescript, which again, I'll be showcasing to you. But let's park it for now. Just make a mental note that VBA does not work on Excel online. Hence, we have a language based on JavaScript called Typescript, right? Will VBA be important for the next 4, 5, 10 years? 100%. Are there a lot of other options that are coming in? Yes. Does Excel only have VBA? No, it has TypeScript. It even has JavaScript now. And very soon we will also have Python in Excel. So the point is that VBA is a very old language. It doesn't get updated too often. It has a lot of limitations in it. But then why do people still use it? One is because it's so old and there is so much work that has already been done on VBA. And that's why, because there's so much legacy work that already happens in VBA, companies still continue to use it. And VBA, I feel, is a very easy starting point, especially for somebody who doesn't know programming compared to learning, let's say, Python or JavaScript. One question that also gets asked is, what is the difference between Visual Basic and macros? Visual Basic is the language that we are using when we are working on Excel. Macros is a general computing term, which simply means performing steps. So I can run macros in JavaScript and I can run macros in Python as well, right? So macros simply refers to automation. For example, if we talk about RPA, robotic process and automation, and I search for macros, you will see that we have macros here as well. In fact, I have a tool with me called Macro Recorder. What the tool does is it allows me to record actions that I'm performing. For example, let's say I want to record a macro. Do you see what's happening, everyone? As I'm moving my mouse, do you see how it's picking up the coordinates? If I do not move my mouse, it captures for how many seconds I'm not using the mouse. If I press Alt Tab and Alt Tab, it registers all those key presses, right? This is also a macro, isn't it? Even though we are not working on Excel, a macro in a very simple one-line sentence would be nothing but a series of steps that is being recorded so that you can repeat it. The idea being to automate tasks, reduce errors, reduce the turnaround time, right? Okay. But for our sake, we will consider it to be interchangeable. So when somebody says I have written an Excel macro or I have written a VBA code, it means the same thing. Even though you should know that macros is a general term, VBA is how we do macros on Excel, right? Very important, Visual Basic macros cannot be undone. So once you perform an action, there is no Control Z. In fact, all the previous steps are lost. So if I perform 10 steps, I run a code and I try to go back, I can't go back, right? It's a very small point and you might be wondering, why am I saying it right now? Because I just want it to be out there. You have to know this, that there is no Control Z that works. Okay. Now let's start with a very simple example. I have an Excel file with me. the standard Excel file that you have, which is Excel SX. So when I go to File and Save As, you will notice that I'm going to save it on my desktop. And I want to call this Open VBA Session, right? Now the default file type here is Excel SX, which is an Excel workbook. That's the first one. If you look at the very second option, it says Excel macro enabled workbook. That's the one we want. A normal Excel workbook cannot save macros in it. That means that if you have a piece of code, let's say a 5-line code, and you want to save it, you can't do that in a normal Excel file. You can only do that in a macro enabled workbook. By saving an Excel file as a macro enabled workbook, does it change the Excel file? Not at all. The pivot, Vlookup, charts, formulas, everything works the same way. The only difference is that it becomes a macro enabled workbook, so you can save macros in it. That's what I'm going to do. Excel macro enabled workbook. I'm going to save it on my desktop. So you can see at the top, everyone, that this is a Excel SM file, not an Excel SX file. Second, if you want to write code, you need to have the developer tab. Now, the reason it's called the developer tab is that it's only meant for very advanced users and people who know coding, who know development. So while the VBA component has been a part of Excel since 1993, it has always been hidden from the user. So right now, if all of you open Excel on your system, you will not find the developer tab. Why have they kept it but also hidden it? Because it's not meant for the average Joe. It's not meant for the average person. So we have to enable it. How do we do that? I go to File, then I go to Options, and very simple, I go to Customize Ribbon, and you notice there is an option called Developer. By default, it would be unselected, deselected, because Microsoft doesn't want a normal person to use it if you're not sure what you're doing with it. But we want to enable it, and you only have to enable it one time. So if you enable it on one of your Excel files, it gets enabled for all your Excel files. It's a system setting. But if you enable it on Excel, it will not get enabled on Word, Outlook, PowerPoint. You have to do it separately for all the different tools. Excellent. So I have the developer tab with me. What do we do with it? So on developer tab, you notice that there are the first two buttons. We have Visual Basic. This is the editor where you write the code. And then you have macros. Macros is where you can see the list of all the codes that you have written. Let us look at an example. So I'm going to click on the Visual Basic button, and you notice that a new window opens up like this, right? Now, the Excel is also there, as you can see, and I can press Alt-Tab to go to my VBA window as well, like this. On the left side, you can see that it shows me the Excel file on which I'm working, which is open VBA session.xlsm. Below that, I have sheet 1, that is the sheet which I'm working on. And there's something called this workbook, if I want to make a change at the workbook level. So we'll write a very simple piece of code. I'm going to select my sheet. But that doesn't make sense, right? Because I don't want the code to run only on one sheet. Obviously, I would like the code to run across all the sheets in my workbook. That is why we have to right click, and I will insert something called a module like this. You can have multiple modules. A module is basically a container for a code. And once you put a code in the module, it will run on all the sheets that you have in the workbook. How does a code start? We always start with a sub, right? And I'm just going to call it first code. So the syntax is you have a sub. The sub stands for a subroutine. Obviously, if it's starting, you are ending it as well with an end sub. And the syntax is open and close parentheses. There is no reason. If you say, but Havish, why is it like this? All programming languages have their own syntax and semantics, right? That is how we do VBA. So what am I going to write here? Something very, very simple. I want to make a message box. So I'm writing MSG box. And what will the message box say? It will say, hello, welcome to the file. right? Like this. That's it. Just one simple piece of code with a single line in it. And now, when I click on this green arrow, F5 or the run button, you notice that it opens a message box like this. Now, see, this is the sort of an action that we can't perform unless we know Visual Basic, correct? No matter how good you are with Excel and how many complex formulas you write, you can't do this because you just don't have the capability of showing a message box, correct? But what if you want to show the message box without going to the Vba window? How do you create a better user experience for the end user? To do this, I can go to Insert and I will go to either a shape or an icon. So I'll make an icon and I just want to select a very simple icon, something for welcome, right? Let us select this. And you notice that once we have the icon, I can right click, I can assign a macro. This is the macro we have. And now you notice that when a person simply clicks, it will run the macro saying, hello, welcome to the file, right? Okay. Now this was a demonstration, but it's not really very practical, right? I mean, sure, it shows you what a macro can do, but why are you doing it? Let us look at a more practical explanation of how VBA can help you, right? It's very simple. Just think about it. Now, if I write a code and I say, select cell, right? And what I'm writing here is I'm saying range A1 dot select. Just allow me to complete this example, then I'll open the forum and you can ask questions, right? So I'm just writing range A1 dot select. Let's go back. Now you notice that I have currently selected this group of cells in column H and column I. But if I go to developer and I click on macros, look what happens when I click on select cell and run. Did you see what happened? It jumped to A1. Now, will that work if I'm scrolling down? Let's see, developer, macros and select cell, and it says run. And did you see what happened? It jumped to A1. Now, this is very practical. Think about it. When you share a file with somebody, a team member, a manager, a client, what happens is that when they open the file, it might happen that currently this row is selected, isn't it? But you don't want that. You would like a way that when the person clicks on the sheet, it should always open on the cell A1. Isn't that cool? Let's see how we do that. So I'm going to go back. I will just copy this one line of code, Control C. And now on my sheet number 2, okay, I'll double click and I will select a event. An event means that the macro will run automatically the moment you open the sheet or activate the sheet. An analogy would be when you are logging into your bank mobile application, right? What does it do? Typically, it asks you for the fingerprint or the passcode, isn't it? That is what we call an event. The event means that the moment you click on the app icon and the application opens for the first time, automatically a pre-recorded set of events is going to run. And what is that event? That it will ask you for the password or the PIN code or whatever, the fingerprint. So when I click on worksheet, I'm saying that when the worksheet is being activated, right? So when the worksheet is being activated, what would I like to happen? I would like to select the cell A1 automatically. And I would also like to say, message box, please enter data carefully. So there are 2 instructions that I've given. Let's see how it works. Now watch. If you notice, I'm manually selecting the rows 242, 243, 244. I'm going to click on sheet 1. Now look what happens the moment I click on sheet 2. I don't have to manually run anything. The moment I click on sheet 2, did you see? It automatically selected A1 and it also said, please enter data carefully. So this is an excellent way for you to create a user journey. If you want the user to navigate your worksheet in a certain manner, this is how you can do that, right? Almost like a mobile application or a website. Yeah. Any questions, anyone so far?
Yes, so actually, side by side, I was just trying this coding, but the very first step, I couldn't open the window and I couldn't code along with you. So that's why I interrupted in between.
Sure. I mean, I already have a video on VBA. I'll just share the link with everyone. Even though the files have not been given, for that you will have to purchase the course. But if only learning is the motive here, just give me a moment. Okay, here you go. So I have a complete 4-hour course on VBA. So you can watch that later. The reason I'm not answering your question right now, I hope you understand, is because we have a limited amount of time, and problem solving will. I mean, I would love to do it, but it's not a workshop, and we'll end up spending a lot of time on that because everybody has their own questions, and I would like to answer everybody's queries, right? So I've shared the link on the chat window. You can have a look at that. It's a complete 4-hour VBA course. Yeah. Anything else? Anyone? Any other question? Okay, let's do something a little different now. Let's talk about automation, right? Now, I would like to open one of my files and let's create a problem statement, right? Now, imagine that on every Friday evening, or let's say every Monday morning, you get a file like this, right? This file is coming from a team member, it's coming from a software, whatever it is. But the problem is that you have to do something with this file, isn't it? That means that I'm expected to clean the data, remove the rows and the columns that I don't want, and I have to do those tasks repeatedly, right? Let me explain that. So I have this data set with me. I'm just bringing it back here. And as you can see, it's a very large data set. I would like to make a few changes to it. Please watch. Before I make the change, I'm going to click on developer and I will select record macro. Record macro is a way for you to record the actions that you're performing. For example, when I increase the font size, Excel remembers that I wanted to increase the font size. When I delete 3 columns, Excel remembers that Havish deleted 3 columns. The advantage of remembering the steps is that you can repeat the steps multiple times. That's the problem, right? We have a lot of repetitive work. And that's the irritating part. See, if I have to work hard, but I'm doing something new and different every day, I don't think anybody complains, or at least most of us don't complain. But if you have to do repetitive work, that seems like a terrible waste of time. Every Monday morning, you receive a file and you have to spend 2 hours cleaning the data, isn't it? And you feel very odd because you know how to do it. You know the exact 70 steps that it requires, but you still have to do those steps, right? So please watch. I'm going to click on record macro, but before I do that, I will take my Excel window like this, and I'm going to drag it to the left side of my screen like this. So what has happened? Now I can only see the Excel on the left side, and the Visual Basic I'm going to keep on the right side. So I hope all of you see what we have done here. I want to multitask, and I want you to be able to see both the windows at the same time, correct? I mean, you don't really have to do it, but it will help you understand it better. Now I'm going to click on record macro, watch carefully. And I'm going to call this test recording, or whatever, we call it data cleaning. And I will click on OK. Immediately you notice that a new module has been created, which is called data cleaning macro, right? Okay. Right now, nothing is happening. There is nothing being recorded because I'm not performing any action. But the moment I select, watch carefully, the moment I select my shipping date, did you see what the macro recorded? Columns bb.select. Now, if I right click and delete it, it says that application.cut copy mode is equal to false, which means I press the escape key and selection.delete shift Excel to left. That means I deleted the column and shifted all the other columns to the left, right? Okay. Now, I also want to make a few other changes. So I will apply a filter. So I will go to data and I will apply a filter. So did you see what it said? Selection.autofilter. But I want to apply a filter only for India. So I will say country is India. What does it say? It says active sheet dot range A1N51291. That means from the top left till the bottom right corner. So A1 till 51291. On the entire data set, there is a filter applied. And I'm applying a filter on 5. 5 means 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, the fifth column. And in the fifth column, which is the country, which criteria am I putting? I'm putting India here. I hope that makes sense. Let me add one more. Let's say we only want to select the consumer segment. So I hope this makes sense that again, now we are applying a filter on the 9th column, which is consumer. And on the sales, I'm applying a number filter, which is between, let's say, 500 and 2,500. So now what does it say? It says that we are applying a filter on the 11th column. What is the criteria? It's like a sum if or a countif, that the value is greater than or equal to 500 and the value is less than or equal to 2,500, right? So we have done this. Let's make a few other changes. I would also like to remove these 3 columns. So right click and delete. I would like to delete my subcategory. I would like to delete everything except my order data and segment and sales. Right click and delete. Make sense? Okay, now watch. Now that I have these 3 columns with me, I'm doing an auto fit so that I can see the complete data. And maybe I want to write a simple formula. So I will write equal to unique, and I'm going to select all the unique dates that I have. I will change the format into a date. So we will go to home and number and select a date format. And finally, we will say equal to the count if. That means that in the range column A, the criteria E8 hash. So it tells me that on every single date, how many transactions have happened. Once we have done all of this, I can also say that the average number of transactions for one day is 35.86, right? Let's make it bold and let's put a color on it like this. Finally, we will go back to developer and I will stop the recording. Why am I giving this example? First, to give you a sense of how does the VBA code even look like? So what you see on the right side, everyone, is VBA code. Now see, some of it you will understand because it's very intuitive. For example, when I say range F:(H, B:(D, E is dot select, you understand that, right? We are selecting column F, G, H, column B, C, D, and column E. When I say selection.delete, you know we are doing a deletion, but some of it you might not understand. For example, what is this? Because this looks like a formula, but it doesn't look like a regular Excel formula. It says RC -4, R 5125. It just doesn't make sense, right? Now, this means that we are not writing formulas in VBA recording the same way we write a formula on Excel. Now, I'll not explain it right now, but it basically looks at the row column coordinate. So the number of rows and the number of columns that you have. So this is like a very common task that all of us have to perform, right? We get a data set, we have to clean it, and we have to do that every single time. But because I've recorded it, imagine that tomorrow I have the data coming one more time, okay? So you notice that I'm creating a new sheet. I have the data here. I don't have to do anything. You know why? Because I just have to go to the macro and I have to run it. And did you see, everyone? It just took a few seconds and I get the same result. Imagine the amount of time that you can save. I want to give you one more example before you ask your questions. So this was a demonstration that I gave to you, but I want to show you a real client project as well, right? Please look at this. So the client requirement here was that we had to create an MIS. So the data was coming from SAP. What you see here, this is how the data was coming, right? What is the data is not important, but we were getting some data. And we were expected to create a dashboard out of it. So you notice here that there are different business cards, there are different formulas, there are different categorizations, right? A typical Excel work. Then there are some charts. We have applied some custom formatting on it. There are pivot tables that have been created. Now, the problem is that right now I have the data for the current month, let's say the month of September. But the moment I get the data for October, which is a slightly modified, updated data, I will have to repeat the entire thing, isn't it? Sure, you can say, but Havish, why do we have to repeat everything? Can't I just replace my data and will the formulas not get updated? You know it as well as I do that life is not that simple. If it was that simple and you can just replace your data with a new data set and it works perfectly, then there's no problem at all. But we all know that when you replace the base data, all sorts of issues come. Sometimes it works partly, some formulas don't work. There are some errors that come in. So we need a sure shot way of doing it. So what I've done here is, you notice I'm deleting the pivot table sheet, right? I have created a macro. Of course, it's a very long, complex macro, but look what it does. I just click. Do you see what it's doing? It's actually creating my entire dashboard for me in 5 seconds. Something that took a person 3 hours to do. And there was an element of risk because there's an error that can happen. You don't have to do that anymore, right? And now if you want to make it modular and add more elements to it, if you do it manually, then you're very person dependent. You're not creating a process. So tomorrow, if that person leaves, then the person has to do a knowledge transfer and teach the other people what they did, isn't it? This is smart because everything is done in an automated manner, right? Any questions, anyone? On the record macro. Okay, so while you're all thinking, let me also show you how we can record a macro on Excel Online, okay? Now, this feature called Automate might not be available on your version of Excel. If I remember correctly, it is only available for the business version of Excel, right? But you will have to check that. Now, as I said, VBA is such an old language that it was never supported on the internet, right? Because it really came at a time when the internet was not even there or was just a baby. 1993 is what I'm talking about. And then over the years, it never had the capability of getting updated to a point where you can use it online. So don't even bother trying. So what Microsoft has done is that they have taken JavaScript, which all of us have at least heard of, and they have modified it a little bit. And they have created a new language called Typescript. So if I can show all of you. So Typescript is JavaScript, but it has some additional capabilities, what we call a superset. A superset basically means that it's based on JavaScript, but there are some additional capabilities on it. And this has been created by Microsoft. Now let's see. Automate. Let me increase the zoom level a little bit. Here it will work a little differently. When I go to Automate and I say record actions, just like we did in Excel, you notice that it opens a tab called record action. Now look what I'm doing. I'm selecting A1 and I'm writing name. Now, did you see what it said? It said edit A1. That means Havish has edited the cell A1. Now I say sales, and then I'm writing Havish is 40 and Anmol is 50, right? And then the average is 45. I make it bold as well. And then I stop the recording. Let's see how the code has been generated. The code has been generated in TypeScript, and it looks like this. Let me just copy it somewhere else so that you can see it properly. 1 second. Yeah, here you go. So that's how the code looks. It's different to VBA because it's very similar to JavaScript, right? So you notice that we are ending with a semicolon. Then you have these curly brackets, right? That is where the function is working. It says let. So we have to declare variables here. We don't use let in VBA. We use something called dim for declaration. And these are, just give me a minute. Right. And these are comments, everyone. The one that comes with a double slash. So what is it saying? That I selected the sheet and I selected the range A1, B4. Then I wrote a formula. What is the formula? Name sales, Havish 40, Anmol 50. And the formula is average B2, B3. And then I also said that after writing the formula, I'm saying dot get format, dot get font, set bold equal to true, because I wanted to make it bold, right? Okay, now this is the point. When you learn coding, the fundamental of coding is the same. Doesn't matter which language you're working on, right? Whether it's C# or Power Query or JavaScript or Python or R. The point is that you learn the fundamentals. You learn, okay, this is how a code looks like. I'm talking about those of you who have never worked on coding before. You understand different keywords. You understand what is a colon and what is a curly bracket. Why are we ending with a semicolon? What is a comment? What is a variable declaration? Stuff like that. Then when you're reading about the brackets that are coming here, the same logic applies in Python as well. For example, tomorrow when you'll be learning Python, this will help you a lot, because in Python, when you learn what is tuples and dictionary, right? You will learn that there are different ways you can represent data, right? So an ordered collection will be a tuple or a tuple. Then you will have a list, and then you will have a dictionary, which is unordered. Like I said, the fundamentals are the same. In fact, if you're going to work on Google Sheets, let me show you. If you're working on Google Sheets, you notice that we can record a macro even in Google Sheets. I don't know how many of you know this, but this is very cool. Watch this. If I go to extensions, I have macros here. All of you would have this by default, right? What does it do when I click on record macro and I write name and sales and Havish and Anmol and 40 and 50 and average, right? All done? Okay. Once I do this and I make it bold as well, and I stop or rather save the recording, look at the code that has been generated, everyone. Look at this. This is called the apps editor. This is where you can basically see the code. Now it's a little different to the way we did it on Typescript, isn't it? But fundamentally, we are doing the same thing. This is JavaScript. That's why you notice it has a lot of resemblance with what we did on Excel Online. So that's the point that I'm trying to make, that coding is around us everywhere. I don't think I need to tell you how important learning coding is for the future of jobs, right? No matter where you are and who you are and what you do. We now have things like Power Apps that are coming in. So Power Apps is going to take the world by storm in the next couple of years. Many companies are already using it. This is something called low code, which means it is programming, but it's not a lot of heavy lifting. So they have created something called Powerfx. Powerfx is brand new. It only came a year back. Powerfx is something that Microsoft has created, which is based on Excel. So you notice, like this is an Excel formula, everyone, which is a text cleaning formula. This is Powerfx. It's very similar to Excel, which means it's easier for people to learn, right? And this is how it looks. This is how it works. So this allows you to really create applications, mobile applications with minimal coding, right? And this is amazing. I mean, the sort of possibilities that it offers is fantastic. So you should definitely go and read about this, right? Power Apps and Powerfx. It's all a part of the Power Platform, where we also have Power Pages and Power BI, right? Any questions so far? So I've shown you how to record a macro on Excel, how to record a macro on Excel Online using TypeScript, and how to record it on Google Sheets using JavaScript. Any questions, anyone? See, it is going to seem a little difficult. Let's be honest. To make all of you feel a little comfortable, I come from a commerce background. So I'm a commerce student with a BBA in marketing and an MBA in marketing. I never studied IT other than the few courses we have in school and college, right? I only started learning coding at the age of 28, right? And this is 2014 and I'm talking about. And I mean, 2014 is not that long back. It's only 8 years back. And the reason I started learning it is because around 2014, I had decided that I want to become an Excel trainer, right? And I realized that there is a ceiling. I was very good with Excel, like really good. Of course, I still had a lot more to learn, but I was very, very good. But I realized that there is an entire area of Excel that I'm not capturing, which is Visual Basic. And I did not know how to start and where to start and what to do. Remember, this was a time when online courses were not even there, right? I mean, Simply Learn, I remember, had just started some time back. YouTube did not have a lot of good content on it. Information was not that easy to get, similar to, compared to what you have today. So I literally picked up a book, right? Just like that, I ordered a book, which is VBA Programming by VBA Power Programming by Michael Alexander. I just picked it up and I remember I just used to read the book page by page by page. Sometimes I would practice, but most of the time I was just reading. I just wanted to get a sense of what is programming and how does VBA work. And it was difficult. Of course, I loved it. That made the entire process easier because I was very passionate about learning coding. So compared to you, who might learn it to find a better job and because you are learning a skill, I was luckier because I was very, very passionate. I loved what it was. You, on the other hand, will learn it because you have to learn it, not because you want to learn it. But be that as it may, now you know how the world is, and accept it or not, the reality is that this is around you everywhere. There's one article that I always like to share with people because a lot of people don't believe me. That's why I like to open this and show it to people. 16 June 2021, right? There was a lot of hue and cry about this. It said that IT companies are set to slash 30 lakh jobs due to automation. Then I remember NASCON came back and said, no, this is not happening. We are actually going to increase the number of jobs. So I will not get into a debate on how true it was and what really happened, but there must be some weight to it, right? Some truth to it. Otherwise, why would there be a report saying something like this? The point I'm trying to make is that automation is coding. What else is it? Is going to change things around us. I mean, I've been working with clients for 4-5 years, some of my clients, and I can tell you the journey that they have been through in the last 4-5 years. I mean, a point where they were only working on Excel, then we moved to automation, and then we have moved to Power BI, and today we talk about moving to other platforms as well. Change is the only constant. Mark my words, because I've been in this area for a really long time. I've been training for 8 years now. I've been consulting for 5 years. And because I work with such a wide variety of clients, I can tell you, automation is here, it's happening. It's a very slow change. That's why you don't see it immediately making a change overnight, but it's happening. I'm not saying that everybody has to become a programmer, but you still have to learn programming because tomorrow, any tool that you're working on, for example, on Excel, forget everything else, right? Let's say you're working on Excel. The future of Excel is going to be JavaScript and TypeScript. I already gave you a small preview. I would like to show you something more. Watch this. I have something called the Script Lab. It's a free tool given by Microsoft. What it does is, watch this. It allows you to literally run JavaScript within Excel. Now there are people who are enabling you to run Jupyter notebooks within Excel. There have been some rumors that Microsoft wants to bring Python directly within Excel natively, not as an add-on tool, but natively. What will that mean? That will mean that if you are applying for a job and then there's another person who has lesser experience, is not as smart as you, but knows programming, is definitely going to have an upper edge, right? I'm not painting a bad picture in front of you, but I'm just giving you a reality check because we are all in the same boat, right? I work as a consultant. At the end of the day, when I'm having a meeting with a client and the client says, Havish, do you know how to do it? And I say, I don't. End of story. They're not interested in hearing about my background and how I became a programmer late in life and all of those things, right? It's very binary. Either you know it or you don't. Either you have the requisite skills or you don't. Speak to people around you, your bosses and mentors and senior people who you know. And I'm sure that everybody will echo the same thing. Business intelligence, right? And automation, which is programming, are the two big things. And this is not for just a few select sub-functions, people here and there. This is for everybody at large, whether you're in HR, marketing, finance, supply chain, operation, whatever it is. Automation is there. It is going to make an impact, right? As a matter of fact, very recently, right? There's something new in Excel called Lambda. It's connected to VBA. That's why I'm discussing it right now. Okay. How does it work? Now, the idea of a Lambda is that it allows you to create a function not using programming, but still using the same logical thinking that you have to apply in programming. And that's the point. A lot of people say, but Havish, I have never heard anybody in my organization talk about VBA or there's a need for VBA that I have witnessed. Sure, maybe that's the case. There are two arguments I have to that. Number one, it's a skill that will always help you make inroads and progress and have something more to say in your interview cycle, in your increment cycle. Number one. Number two, it will help you with other organizations, other jobs that you will apply to. And number three, learning VBA will help you understand logical thinking, the way programming works, the way you think like a programmer. That will help you learn Python tomorrow and learn Powerfx and other tools, right? So don't think about VBA as only learning VBA. VBA, everyone, is an entry point for you to learn programming, get into, that universe of people who know how to code. And, people who don't know how to code always feel I'm missing out. I don't know how to start and where to start. And I agree, it's very difficult. That is where I feel Excel is a great starting point because you earn an immediate benefit because you're able to automate your tasks and impress your bosses and get a better job. And it will also help you start your journey with programming. That's how I started. I started with VBA for a couple of years. In 2018, I started learning Python. 2019, I started learning R. Today, I work on JavaScript, TypeScript as well, right? Just to show you how Lambda works, it's not coding, but it follows the same logical thinking that you would follow in coding. Let me give you an example. Let us say that I have a date, right? This is my project start date. Okay. And this is my project end date. What I want to find is the number of working days between these two dates. Right? Which means that if I'm starting the project on the 1st of July 2022, and today being the 23rd of September 2022, I can't simply do this minus this plus 1 because 85 will count everything, the Saturday, Sunday as well, which I don't want. I am assuming a 5-day working week. So what I want to do is I only want to count working days. So if you modify this a little bit, I can also say that I want to find the weekends, very important, because for project planning, if you have a start and end date, of course, you want to find out how many weekends are in that period, isn't it? If I want to write a formula, how would I do it? This is how I'll do it. Please watch. I will write equal to this minus this end minus start plus 1. That gives me 85. We know that. From this, I'm going to subtract the working days, which would be net work days international, where I select my starting date, comma my ending date, right? Comma 1, which is Saturday, Sunday. And that everyone will tell me that there are 24 weekends, Saturday and Sunday, in this period, 1st to 23rd. Let me show you the formula as well. It works like this. Now, there's another way I have done it, which is I have created my own function called weekends. Please watch. So I only have to select start date, comma, end date. That's it. And you get 24. How cool is that? Now, do you see the difference? The first one is clumsy. It's not rocket science, but there's a chance of making a mistake If there are 500 people in an organization, you have to teach it to everyone. It's very easy for somebody to forget to put that +1, right? What I have done is I made it easier by creating what we call a UDF. A UDF is a user defined function. It allows you to create your own function and add it to the library of Excel functions, like I have done. Now, where have I done this? Let me go to developer and Visual Basic. And you will notice that this is my function, everyone. One moment. Here we go. I'm just going to copy it on a notepad so you can all see it clearly like this. Okay. See, earlier we were creating a subroutine. Now we are creating a function. Hence, we are writing function and end function. What is a function called? It is called HMC date weekends. There are 2 parameters or arguments in it. Like Vlookup has 4 parameters. Here we have 2 parameters. One is start date. The other is end date. What are the working days? It is worksheet function network days, start date, comma, end date. And what is calendar days? End date minus start date +1. And what is the final result? Calendar days minus working days. Makes sense, right? We almost did the same thing when we were working on Excel formula as well. The logic is the same. It's just that I don't want to write this formula every single time. I want to create the formula one time so that I can reuse it as many times as I want. How do we do the same thing using Lambda? Let's watch. For Lambda, I'm writing, okay, watch carefully. I'm writing Lambda. Now there are 2 parameters. So the 2 parameters will be, one will be the start date. The other one will be the end date. Correct? Now I am declaring some names. So the first name will be my calendar days, which is the total number of days. What is the calendar days? It is my end date minus start date +1, right? That's one. And then we also want to find the working days. So my working days will be network days international, start date, comma, end date, comma, 1, right? Now that your let is defined, what we can do is I can now write the final formula, which is nothing but my calendar days minus my working days, like this. Now, remember, the way Lambda works is that if you press enter, it won't really work. It will just give you a calculation error. But if you want to test it out, then I can write D2 and D3, and that's not working. Just give me a moment. Okay. You see, we are getting the same result. But how do you save the Lambda now? So I can just delete it, copy the entire thing, go to my formulas and name manager. Here I go to new. I create a new name. I want to call it weekends. And I want to paste it here. Right? And watch now. So I can just write weekends, select my start date, select my end date, and voila, there you go. Now the point is that, yes, I was able to do the same thing before as well. I did this 5 years back, but that required programming, isn't it? And that's not everybody's cup of tea, because these codes can be very long and very complex, but the logical thinking is the same. So Lambda is like a combination of the 2 things. You're not expected to write code because you're writing Excel formulas, isn't it? But at the same time, the logical thinking will be the same as programming. So you have to think like a programmer, but you have the luxury of writing Excel formulas, right? Any questions on this? if you do a search on Naukri for VBA, there are about 20 some odd thousand. There are 26,000 jobs that have VBA written in it. In fact, if I show you Tableau, it's lesser than VBA. I don't think I need to say anything more, right? Again, I'm not saying that you are expected to become a developer. For example, are you going to apply for a job as a language application developer? No, even I won't, right? The point is, we are not coders, but it's a very important skill that we need to possess, no matter what function and what industry we are working in, right? Because as long as you're working with data, unless you're a soft skills or a communication trainer, right? I don't think there's anybody who can afford to say today in this, in this year of 2022 that I don't want to learn programming. You have to learn programming. Hate it, like it, nobody cares. You have to learn it, right? Perfect. Any question, anyone?
Hi, Avesh, Ratika this side. Thank you for
Yes.
conducting such a beautiful session. One thing I want to find out, like initially when I was working with the Ministry of Finance, there was this website from IMF Data Economic Prospects. We used to take up the data, take it, and subsequently get the old data for 67 countries across 20 variables. Each month we had to do that. Later in the end, they wanted a VBA code, like they wanted to put page numbers in each and every Excel sheet. So one Excel sheet would have 67 subcategory sheets with page numbers individually. So 1-2 months we did it, but when we have to adopt that to, let's say, every month and across the same setup had to be done across 20 economic variables for 67 countries, how can we automate the formatting in this particular aspect?
Yeah, I mean, that's a consulting project. So you can't really record this action because you don't know how many, that number will keep on changing every month. So you can't record it, but you have to automate it. Let me give you an example on that. So one moment. Just allow me to clean up a little bit, everyone. A lot of files open. 1 second. So I would like to show everybody something on the lines of this. Okay, 1 second. So let us come to GitHub, and I would like to show you Excel, top values, select range. One moment. Yeah, I guess we can use this one. Okay. So what we're doing here is I am trying to show you an example where using VBA, I have a folder with me, and that folder has a lot of subfolders in it, right? I would like to get a name of all of these. The point is that you said, Havish, I have multiple workbooks and sheets and pages, and I have to perform some action on it, right? Performing the action comes later. First, you need a way to be able to run a loop and be able to access every single one of those workbook combinations, right? That's something similar to this. So I'll just open it and I'll give you a live demonstration, everyone. This video is also available on YouTube, FYI. Okay, so let me first turn off my autosave. And what I'm going to do is I want to take one of my folder paths. So let me come to downloads and maybe this one. Okay, so I'm just copying the path, Control C, come back. And I'm going to paste the path here with a slash at the end. Now see what happens. If I click on folder, that's it. One click, it tells me all the different folders within that parent folder, right? Okay. But what if I say subfolder? Now watch. Now it asks me to select it. So I'm going to go to downloads. I'm going to select my DAX folder. Now see what happens. The moment I click on OK, how cool is that? It has literally gone through my parent folder. There are 73 files in it. And it has gone to the path, to the directory, to the name of the file. It also gives me the details of the date created and the date modified, is it? Yeah, right? I mean, these are tasks that otherwise you will do manually, right? I mean, how else will you do it? So VBA also has the capability of not just working within that Excel file, but it also has the capability of reading files in your Windows system. It has the ability of renaming files, shifting files from one place to the other, deleting files as well, right? So yeah, I mean, to answer your question, that's more of a consulting project. So I'm not sure if I can give you a simple answer to that, but maybe just do a little bit of Google search and you might find some solution to that. But typically this is something for which you will have to hire a developer and they'll create the solution for you.
Thank you so much. That work was
Let
done.
me also,
so let's move forward.
let me also share with everyone what else is there on the VBA playlist. So one is a complete VBA course. It's a 4-hour course. Then I have given different examples. For example, how to combine with mail merge. I know all of you know how to do mail merge. In this video, I have explained how to do mail merge, how to create individual files, and how to rename the file with the name of the employee. A very cool example. This is a project I've done for so many clients, right? Look at this. How to automate Excel to PowerPoint. Let's say you have 7 charts on Excel. They're all of different sizes on different sheets. You don't want to do it manually. You don't want to copy it one by one and put it on PowerPoint. So you just click one button and it automatically sends the charts from Excel to PowerPoint. Then files in a folder, file names. How to automate Outlook is also one of the examples which I can't seem to find, this one. So let's say you have to send out 100 emails to 100 different email IDs. The to CC, BCC also is different. The attachment is different. The body is different. How do you do this? Simple. Make an Excel file, put all the details in it, click on a button, give it 5-10 minutes. It will automatically send all the files via Outlook. I mean, this is just to show you the capabilities, but there's so much more that all of you can do with VBA, right? I'm just going to share this with you as well. This, everyone, is the VBA playlist, right? Okay. If you go to Stack Overflow, which is the #1 community for developers, and if you search for VBA, you will see that there are, one moment, there are 203,000 questions related to VBA. That's a lot, right? Remember, VBA might be a very interesting language because, see, Excel users don't know programming and programmers don't use Excel, right? I mean, why would a data scientist work on Excel? I know so many data scientists who have never even worked on Excel in their entire life. That said, there is a need, there is a common area where I want to do programming on Excel because my needs are sophisticated and I need to be able to record actions and I need to be able to do stuff like this. So if you notice, these are again projects that I do for various clients. So this is a simple Excel file, what you see right now. Like this. Let me remove the filter. It's a normal Excel file. Look what we have done. We have actually created an entire user form, right? So once I select a name, check this out. This entire user form is working on Excel. It has been created on Visual Basic. So this is another use case for using VBA to create these type of application. So one question I get asked very often is, but why will a company want this and why would they pay you money for this? Why don't they just hire a developer, or why do they not just do it on the cloud? A lot of reasons. Number one, cost factor. You don't have deep, endless pockets where you say that for everything I'm going to hire developers and do it. Also, it doesn't make sense because your raw data is on Excel. You're consuming data, presenting it to the management on Excel. So it doesn't make sense to do everything on the cloud. While cloud will work well for some things, maybe your design and your ERPs and stuff like that, you're not going to create your financial models on the cloud. It doesn't make sense, right? You're going to do it on an Excel file. In the past, today, and forever, models from any banking institution, any accounting firm, auditing firm will be done on Excel. What else will you use? There is no other alternative that you have, right? So there is a use case. There's a need for it. Sure. If I speak about the last 4-5 years, I've seen that this work has reduced. To give you an honest picture, Maybe they are still doing it. I don't know, but because I have moved a lot of my work towards Power BI, when I started consulting, I was only working on Excel. So this is what I used to do, create user forms like these, right? That said, it's good to know that this capability is there. How much you will end up using it, I don't know, but it's good to know that the capability of creating these simple user forms also exists when you're working with Excel. Great. What else? Yeah, I mean, more or less, I'm done from my side. I've shown you the recording. I have shown you TypeScript. I've shown you Google Apps Editor. I have shown you Lambda. We have written a code ourselves. Of course, there's a lot of code that you can copy from the internet. You just have to type top 100 VBA codes. And because it's such an old language, you have thousands of articles and websites and blogs and videos that talk about VBA. There is no dearth of content that you have, right? I've also shared with you my journey, shown you a couple of client examples as well. Yeah, but the forum is open. If you have any questions, we'll be happy to answer that. Anything on your mind that you want to?
Hi, Havish. Naveen here.
Yes.
Thank you very much for sharing your journey. That was really very enlightening, and I look forward to learn more on VBA very soon. Thank you very much.
Thanks. I'm also sharing the link for my courses every month. So there are different courses that I have. So there is an Excel bundle, which is 40 hours of content, about 45 hours of content. So there are 20 courses in it, 18 on Excel, 2 on Google Sheets, that literally covers everything that you need, right from Excel Bible, which is row, column, formula, interface, things like that, moving forward to Vlookup, pivot table, charts, more advanced topics like financial modeling, VBA, dynamic arrays, marketing analytics, statistics, right? And very advanced topics like Power Query, TypeScript, and DAX as well, right? So it's a complete bundle. All the content has been recorded, prepared by me. The same topics, the same content that I use for my corporate training has been covered here as well, right? So a lot of content is available on YouTube. Of course, you don't have the files there. And a lot of it is unique, which is only available on the course that you have, right? And then, of course, there's a mega bundle. This is for 3499. This has 34 courses in it. So there is Power BI, Tableau, Excel, Word, PowerPoint, SQL, R, Python, 9, right? R, Python, 9 is, and SQL are only basic. Excel, Power BI, Tableau, PowerPoint are end-to-end courses, right? Basic to advanced. Excellent. Great. If there are no more questions, then I guess how is it different from the mega bundle?
Do you have a course on VBA as such?
Yeah. So VBA is not available separately, but the course that you have on Excel, the mega bundle, the Excel bundle, that has VBA in it. So, because VBA is also connected to other areas. One of the reasons I've not kept the courses separately is because you can't learn VBA separately. You have to learn dynamic arrays as well, right? Otherwise, you will not understand VBA well. So that's why the entire bundle is there, and it's one flat price. I don't do discounts. Access is lifetime. You get free lifetime access. You also get free update to all the update that happens. So whenever a course gets updated and new content, new videos are added, you don't have to pay extra for it. It's all free of cost.
One more question I have. You were just mentioning about dynamic arrays. I'm sorry, I don't know what that is. Could you kindly throw some light on it?
Sure. Even though I have a lot of content on YouTube, but still, I'll just give you a small demonstration. So the way dynamic arrays work is that, by the way, it only works on the latest version of Excel, Microsoft 365. Older versions will not support it. The basic idea is that if I have 1, 2, 3, and I have 4, 5, 6, I don't need to write one formula, put a $sign and copy it. I can simply multiply 3 cells by 3 cells and it returns 3 results like this. Or let us say that I have some transactions like this, and you want to find how many unique values are there. So I can just write unique and it tells me how many unique values are there like this. Now, if you say, but okay, I have the values, can I join it together? So I can also write a text join, and I can use a comma followed by a space, and it also joins it like this. But what if there is a D that comes before? Now you say, but I don't want the D to come before. So I can now also sort my data after doing the unique, and it will also sort the data alphabetically for me, right? So there are a lot of things that dynamic arrays can do for you. The basic idea is that it doesn't replace $, but it allows you to work with Excel more dynamically. For example, let's say you're working on Vlookup, right? Something all of us know and we understand, right? Let me open one of my examples. Something I'm doing for a client training as well. One moment. Look at this. Okay. One second, let me just turn off my auto save. Now let's say you have a VLOOKUP that you want to apply. Now the problem is that my database has 4 columns in it: customer ID, customer name, region, and market. Usually what we would do is we would write VLOOKUP, my lookup value, comma, my table array is all the 4 columns, my name is the second column, and then a false, correct? And it will give me the name. How do you get the market? Now you'll have to copy it and you'll have to manually change the 2 into 3. But with the power of dynamic arrays, I can just put a curly bracket 2, 3 like this. And now you notice it gives us 2 results like this, right? So the basic premise of a dynamic array is that Excel stores data dynamically, right? So how it stores data is that if I write this, it becomes a dynamic array. So please watch. So let's say I'm writing 1, 2, 3, and 4. What does it mean? I'm writing 1 in the first cell. On the right, I'm writing 2. Below that, in the second row, I'm writing 3 and 4, like this. That's the idea. And if you want to select all 4 of them, then I can simply write sum. And I don't need to select all the 4. I just need to write C6 hash. It will automatically select all the 4. It's a very detailed area, as you can see, but this only came a few years back. That's why most people don't know about it. But this has completely revolutionized the way we work on Excel. I mean, Excel is just a different tool altogether with the introduction of dynamic arrays. Right? I hope that gave you some clarity. There's a lot more content available in the course and on YouTube as well.
Thank you, Havish.
Excellent. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining me. I hope they were takeaways for everyone. If you still have any further question, please feel free to reach out either on email or on LinkedIn. LinkedIn would be better if you want to have a chat, and we'll be more than happy to clear all your doubts. All the best.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Manish.
Thank you.